After years of hype, theories, rewatches, and promises that everything will change, Stranger Things has officially ended. No more seasons, no more cliffhangers. This was the finale. And the reaction, absolute chaos. Because right now, the fandom is split straight down the middle. Some people are calling this a beautiful, emotional, perfect send-off. Others are saying it was safe, hollow, and shockingly underwhelming. And the wild part is, both sides think the other one completely missed the point. That's usually a red flag. This was supposed to be the end game, the season where consequences finally hit, where sacrifice actually meant something, where the show proved that all the build-up, all the trauma, all the deaths weren't just spectacle, but leading somewhere unavoidable. Instead, a lot of viewers walked away asking the same uncomfortable question. Did Stranger Things just play it safe at the exact moment it needed to be brave? Because when you strip away the visuals, the music, the nostalgia, and the emotional callbacks, what's left is an ending that feels suspiciously gentle for a story built on horror. An ending that talks about sacrifice, but hesitates to fully commit to it. An ending that gives you comfort when it promised devastation. And that's why people are angry. Not because the show is bad. Not because the characters are ruined. But because this felt like a finale that refused to hurt us, even when hurting us might have made it unforgettable. So today, we're going full spoilers. No sugarcoating, no nostalgia goggles. We're breaking down what actually worked, what absolutely didn't, and why this ending feels like it stopped just short of greatness. And this isn't just about my take. I want this comment section to turn into a war zone of opinions. Did this finale satisfy you? Did it disappoint you? Or did it leave you feeling strangely empty? Because however you feel about it, one thing is undeniable. This ending wasn't quiet. It wasn't forgettable. And it definitely wasn't unanimous. Let's talk about it. Before we even get to the finale, we have to be honest about something that a lot of fans are clearly struggling to admit. The problems didn't start at the ending. The finale didn't create the disappointment, it inherited it. By the time Stranger Things reached Volume 2, the cracks were already impossible to ignore. This season felt bloated, overwritten, overexplained, and worst of all, strangely unsure of itself. The dialogue is the clearest example. This is the same show that once made kids arguing over Dungeons and Dragons rules feel authentic and electric. Now, entire episodes feel like a conveyor belt of exposition. Characters don't talk to each other anymore, they talk at the audience. Every other scene becomes a tutorial. Someone grabs an object. Someone stares into the distance. And suddenly, we're getting a simplified breakdown of a massive sci-fi plan we already understand. This isn't clever storytelling. This is hand-holding. And it completely kills tension. Stranger Things used to trust silence. It used to let scenes breathe. Now it's terrified that if it doesn't explain everything, viewers will be lost. The result is a season that feels more like a recap of itself than a natural progression. Then there's the age problem, something the show never truly solved. These characters are still being written like awkward middle schoolers, but the actors are very obviously not that anymore. And that mismatch creates moments that feel unintentionally awkward, emotionally forced, or just plain unnatural. Lines that might have worked 5 years ago now feel stiff, overperformed, or oddly juvenile. This is especially noticeable in the emotional speeches, moments that should devastate, but instead drag. Which brings us to packing. Volume 2 is a masterclass in misplaced priorities. Scenes that should have been urgent linger forever, while massive lore reveals are rushed through like afterthoughts. The show spends an absurd amount of time re-explaining concepts we've lived with for years, yet saves the most important mythology, the origins of the Upside Down, Vecna's deeper motivations, for the last possible second. That imbalance matters. Because when a story waits too long to explain itself, the explanation never feels satisfying. It feels overdue. And yet, despite all of this, the show still has flashes of what it used to be. Will controlling Vecna, genuinely powerful, Karen Wheeler stepping in unexpectedly, a standout moment. Steve and Dustin finally confronting their dynamic instead of joking around it. Long overdue. But those moments feel like islands in a sea of overindulgence. Even Max's storyline, which should have been relentlessly intense, gets bogged down by drawn-out speeches and hesitation that actively undercuts the danger. We've already seen what happens when Max pauses too long. So when the show does it again, it feels less like character development and more like narrative stalling. And then there's Will's coming out scene. Conceptually, it makes sense. Thematically, it fits. But execution matters, and this execution is clumsy. The scene runs too long, leans into cliché, and lacks the subtlety that Stranger Things once excelled at. It doesn't feel organic, it feels staged. That's why the backlash exists. Not because the idea is wrong, but because the scene doesn't land with the emotional precision it needed. So by the time we reach the finale, the show is already on uneven ground. And that makes what happens next even more frustrating. On paper, the finale has everything it needs. The Upside Down collapsing. Vecna at full power. The Mind Flayer returning as the ultimate threat. 11 pushed to her absolute limit. This should have been devastating. Visually, it's impressive. The Mind Flayer looks monstrous. The scale is massive. The action is intense. And yes, watching 11 go full force is undeniably thrilling in a surface-level, blockbuster way. But here's the issue. The danger doesn't linger. For a villain that's haunted this show for multiple seasons, the final confrontation is shockingly efficient. There's no extended sense of dread. No moment where it truly feels like the characters might lose everything. The battle happens, and then it's over. And then comes the reveal that quietly reshapes the entire series. Vecna and the Mind Flayer are one. This is a huge decision, and one that fundamentally changes how the show's mythology works. The Mind Flayer, once a cosmic, unknowable horror, is suddenly demoted to an extension of Vecna's will. That choice simplifies the narrative, sure, but it also strips away a lot of the existential terror that made earlier seasons so effective. It's not wrong, but it's definitely less interesting. Joyce killing Vecna is emotionally satisfying. That moment works. It feels earned. Seeing flashes of everyone Vecna hurt as he's defeated is one of the stronger beats in the episode. But then we hit the most baffling storytelling choice of the season. Henry Creel's backstory is rushed. After seasons of over-explaining minor details, the show speedruns the most important character history it has left. There is so much potential here. Psychological depth, moral complexity, thematic weight, and it's all skimmed through like an obligation. That's a massive missed opportunity. And then, just like that, it's done. Vecna is defeated. The worlds don't merge. The apocalypse is stopped. Which leads us to the military, Callie, and all the dangling threads that the show simply abandons. Characters introduced as major threats either die without impact or vanish without consequence. Entire plotlines are dropped the moment they become inconvenient. This is where the finale starts to feel rushed, not because too much happens, but because the show is eager to move on to the epilogue. And that's when the tone shift happens. The epilogue is warm, gentle, almost aggressively comforting. Everyone is okay. The kids graduate. The older characters find purpose. Steve becomes exactly who the show has been shaping him into for years. Joyce finally gets peace. It's emotional, but it's also sanitized. After all the horror, trauma, and death this show put its characters through, the resolution feels suspiciously neat. Too neat, like the show didn't want to upset anyone on its way out. And that's where the finale loses its edge. The D&D scene is undeniably heartfelt. It captures the soul of the show, friendship, imagination, shared storytelling. But it's also deeply meta in a way that feels self-protective. Mike narrating happy futures for everyone isn't just storytelling, it's reassurance. And then there's 11. The ambiguity surrounding her fate is the most divisive choice the show makes. and also the most revealing. The show refuses to commit. Is she alive, dead, somewhere else? Instead of answering, the finale gives you a theory, a comforting explanation, just enough visual clues to let you believe whatever hurts the least. That might feel poetic to some. To others, it feels like avoidance. Because ambiguity only works when it deepens meaning. Here, it mostly preserves options. It keeps the door open. It avoids finality. And after 5 seasons of escalating stakes, that lack of commitment is glaring. If 11 is alive, the sacrifice loses weight. If she's dead, the show refuses to say it. And if it's up to interpretation, then the story never fully ends. That's not haunting. That's safe. And that safety defines the entire finale. Stranger Things didn't collapse, but it didn't dare either. It chose comfort over courage, nostalgia over consequence, reassurance over risk. And that's why this ending will always feel just one step short of greatness. So let's stop dancing around it and say the quiet part out loud. Stranger Things did not end the way a story this ambitious should have ended. It didn't crash and burn, but it absolutely pulled its punches. And for a show that spent an entire season screaming about sacrifice, inevitability, and consequences, that hesitation is impossible to ignore. This finale wanted the feeling of a devastating ending without actually committing to one. And that matters. Because when you spend years raising the stakes, killing beloved characters, traumatizing children, promising that nothing will ever be the same, you don't get to suddenly decide that almost everyone walks away fine. You don't get to soften the blow at the last second and still expect the ending to hit like a gut punch. That's not how storytelling works. This season told us repeatedly that the cost would be unbearable, that Vecna was unstoppable, that the upside down was a wound that could never fully close. And yet, when the moment finally came to prove that, the show blinked. The finale didn't fail, but it flinched. And that flinch is why this ending feels hollow to so many people. Let's be clear, I'm not asking for misery porn. I'm not saying the show needed to massacre half the cast. But after everything these characters went through, the resolution feels suspiciously clean, suspiciously tidy, almost curated to avoid upsetting anyone too deeply. And that's the real problem. Stranger Things didn't trust its audience to handle real loss. Instead of leaning into the pain, it leaned into nostalgia. Instead of consequences, it chose comfort. Instead of finality, it chose ambiguity that conveniently keeps every door open for spin-offs, reunions, or a chapter 2, 10 years down the line. That's not bold storytelling. That's cautious brand management. And it's frustrating, because this show used to be braver than that. Early Stranger Things thrived on restraint, on letting horror breathe, on silence, tension, and implication. This finale, by contrast, explains almost everything, resolves almost everyone, and then politely asks you to fill in the rest with your own headcanon. The 11 ambiguity is the perfect example. Is she alive? Is she dead? Is she somewhere else entirely? The show refuses to answer, not because the mystery is profound, but because answering would require commitment. And commitment would mean upsetting part of the audience. So instead, it hands you a comforting theory and says, believe whatever makes you feel better. That might sound poetic, but dramatically it's a dodge. Because if 11 is alive, then the sacrifice loses weight. If she's dead, then the show refuses to say it. And if it's up to interpretation, then the story never truly ends. That's not haunting, that's evasive. And this issue extends beyond 11. Vecna's defeat feels rushed. The Mind Flayer's legacy is reduced. Years of mythology are wrapped up quickly after seasons of dragging out far smaller explanations. Characters who should have been pivotal, Callie, the military leadership, either die without impact or disappear without consequence. The finale feels like it's constantly moving past moments that deserve to linger. And when it does slow down, like in the epilogue, it suddenly has all the time in the world. Time for happy futures. Time for career updates. Time for clean resolutions. It's emotional, sure, but it's also sanitized. This is where the finale loses its edge. Because when you look back at the entire journey, the fear, the body count, the trauma, this ending doesn't feel proportional. It feels designed to reassure rather than resonate, to comfort rather than challenge. And maybe that's exactly what some fans wanted. But for others, especially those who grew up with this show, that choice feels like a betrayal of what made Stranger Things special in the first place. The show didn't need to be cruel, but it did need to be honest. Honest about the cost. Honest about the damage. Honest about the fact that some doors, once opened, don't close neatly. Instead, we got an ending that feels emotionally sincere, but narratively safe. And that's why I land where I land. I don't hate this finale. I don't think it ruins the show. But I do think it missed its chance to be unforgettable. This could have been an ending people debated for decades because of how bold it was. Instead, it's an ending people debate because it feels unfinished by design. Stranger Things didn't end on a wrong note. It ended on a soft one. And softness, in a story built on horror and loss, is a risky choice. So now I want to hear from you. Did this ending satisfy you? Or did it feel like the show backed away at the last second? Do you see the ambiguity as poetic or as a cop-out? Do you think Stranger Things earned its happy endings or avoided harder truths? Sound off in the comments, push back, disagree, lay out your case. Because if nothing else, this finale proves one thing beyond any doubt. Stranger Things may be over, but the argument about how it should have ended is just getting started.